Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome to today's lecture. Today we're going to start off with, or in fact we're going to continue with advertising, which is one of the elements of the promotional mix that we did in the previous chapter. But before we start off with today's lecture, let's quickly recap what we did in the previous class. We started off by discussing the shifts that are taking place when it comes to traditional to modern communication. And we talked about how technology has played a significant role in changing the way we communicate with each other. We talked about how we're moving from broadcasting to narrowcasting, right? So the theorists nowadays are predicting a scenario which they like to call as kiosk scenario. The kiosk scenario is a scenario whereby the traditional mediums of communication would be replaced completely by the new ways of communication, or new mediums of communication, should I put it that way. So that means television, radio, newspaper, all these mediums would go obsolete and they would be replaced by the new mediums of communication, that is, social networking websites, WhatsApp, Twitter, all these other forms of communication. Now this is a more extreme view of looking at things. The other paradigm, or the other batch of theorists, think that TV is not replaceable at the moment. In fact, TV is not only the game. That's the way they put it. They say that television needs to be complemented by other mediums of communication so that the communication needs to be, communication can be made effective. So they say you need to use television, you need to use all the traditional mediums that you have, and you need to complement those mediums with the new mediums that are now being introduced as a result of changing technologies. So maybe with the television advertisements, it would be a good idea to write a blog on the internet about the product as well. Or maybe to create other forms of new communication through superior technology, right? So TV is not only the game these days, you need to use other mediums as well so as to compete better with your customers. And they also are of the opinion that you need to bridge the gap between different mediums, right? So then you need to bridge the gap between traditional medium and the new medium, and this is the shift that is taking place. Then we talked about integrated marketing communication. Now integrated marketing communication talks about consistent communication throughout all the contact points of the company. So whether you go on the website, whether you talk to the employee, whether you interact online with the company representative, you call the call center, all the information that you get from all these contact points needs to be consistent. So they define integrated marketing communication. Integrated marketing communication is the integration by the company of its communication channel to deliver a clear, consistent, and compelling message about the organization and its brands. Then we studied the communication process. How does communication actually takes place? Now communication starts from the sender. The sender encodes the message, and then it is decoded by the receiver, and once it is decoded by the receiver, then the receiver gives the response, which is right here, and then from the receiver you get the feedback, which again goes to the sender. So all this process is extremely important for marketers, because it is through this process that they would be communicating with the customer. So they would decide what the message would be. That may be an offering, maybe you're giving rupees 10 off on a certain detergent maybe, and you want to send out that message. The consumer receives it, he thinks it's a good offer, he would give feedback by purchasing the product more than he usually does, and as a result the sender would get the message that the message was well received. Now during all this communication process, what could create problems? That is noise. Now the message may not be designed properly, or you were not able to deliver the message properly, or the consumer might not be able to receive the message properly, or he might not be able to give you response properly. All these elements create noise and disrupt the communication process. So let's just say if you were not able to sort of communicate well to your customer that this was the previous price of the product. Let's say the product was priced at rupees 250 and now it's now priced at rupees 240. This particular information was not disseminated properly to the end customer, as a result of which the desired feedback was never gained. So this is all noise. Then we talked about steps in developing effective marketing communication, and the first step was identify the target audience. So how would you identify? In the first step, you identify who is your target audience, where would you deliver the message, how would you deliver the message, in what way would you deliver the message. So all these questions are answered in the very first step of developing an effective marketing communication. Now once you're done with that, once you've identified who your target audience is, then you move on to the second step, that is determine the communication objective. What objective are you trying to attain from your communication? And it is dependent on where your prospective target audience is in the buyer readiness stage that we talked about. Right? So buyer readiness stages, different stages of buyer. So maybe awareness level could be one stage, conviction could be one stage, liking could be one stage. So where does your customer lie on that buyer readiness stage? Once you decide where your customer lies, then your objective is to take him to next step, or maybe another step, a step ahead, right? So what you do in determining the communication objective is you identify where your prospective customer is on the buyer readiness stage, and then design your communication objective accordingly. Then the next element is design the message. There are three important elements to designing a message. The first element is the message content. What would be the content of the message? What sort of appeal would you be using, whether it be a moral appeal, whether it be a rational appeal, or whether it be a social appeal, a humorous appeal. So the different types of appeals that you may use in the message content, right? So Ufone is famous for using humorous appeals in their advertisements, right? Various ministries use moral appeals and social appeals in their advertisements. So depending upon the type of product and the nature of your communication and your target audience, you decide on what sort of appeal would you make in the message content. Another important element when designing a message alongside the message content is message structure. Now would there be a two-sided agreement argument whether it be a one-sided argument? You need to decide all this when you're designing the message. And last step in designing a message is message format. So what sort of format would you be using? What colors would you be using? Which illustrations would be part of your message? How would the placement take place of all these illustrations? So all this falls under designing a message. Once you've designed the message, then you choose the medium for communicating what you decide to communicate, right? So the medium may be personal, the medium may be non-personal. So a personal medium is a medium whereby you go personally to a person, you present, the company representative presents himself and then tries to convince the people into buying the product. And it's not necessarily the company representative that would be making the personal communication. It may be an opinion leader. You may create buzz marketing whereby the opinion leaders communicate with the people and tell them which product is better and which product they should choose. So all this is personal communication. On the other hand, you have non-personal communication, advertising, newspaper advertisements, television advertisements. These are all non-personal mediums. So depending upon the type of message and depending upon the strategy that you make for your communication, you can choose any medium, or you can choose a combination of these mediums to send out an effective message. Once you've chosen the message, and once you've designed the message, you've chosen the medium, then the next step is that you choose the message source. Who would the message come from? So maybe a celebrity could send out the message. Maybe, let's say if it's a medical product, a doctor may be hired to send out the message to the people. If it's an educational institute, maybe a professor sends out the information. So this is all these are the message sources that you could use in sending out your message. Then once you've sent out the message, one of the most important and pivotal element in communication is collecting feedback. And it is the feedback that tells you whether the communication was effective or not. So all the money that you've put in, was it worth it or not? What step would tell you that? It is the last step of the process, that is collecting feedback. Now what happens in collecting feedback? You may ask the customer, have you seen the ad? So you can check their recallability of the advertisement. You could ask them questions regarding the product. Was the advertisement adequately designed to communicate with the end customer? Did it convey the message that it was designed to convey? So you could interview your customer. You could ask them about the opinion about company, whether they would want to purchase the product or not. So all these elements give you tell you about the recall and the feedback and the effectiveness of your communication. Now then we talked about setting up total promotional budget. Now we said that setting up a promotional budget is a tricky question to answer, right? Because you're never sure as to how much budget should you allocate. The different methods that you can use to allocate a promotional budget. In this book we've identified, or the writer has identified, 4 different ways in which you could set your promotional budget. The first way that you could set your promotional budget is through affordable budget method, which is the easiest and the most convenient form of allocating promotional budget. So how much money do I have? How much dough is I have? I would allocate budget accordingly. So let's say I have quite an amount in my pocket. I would spend quite an amount on promotions. If I don't have a lot of money, I would spend less on promotions. So depending upon how much money you have in your pocket, you decide how much you would want to promote your product. So affordability is what matters in this particular form of budget allocation. The drawback, of course, it ignores the effects of promotion on sales, because you have limited budget, so you cannot aim higher than that. So you're not taking sales in a way that you take in other forms of budget allocations. Then talking about percentage of sales method, again a very simple method of allocating budget, whereby you allocate a certain percentage of sales to promotions, right? So if your sales are, let's say, rupees 1 lakh, you allocate 10% of it into the for promotions of the products. That means you would allocate rupees 10,000 for promotion of product. So this is percentage of sales method. The biggest drawback of this particular method is that it wrongly views sale as the cause rather than the result of promotion. Now ideally, the logic says that after promotion, once you've promoted the product, the sales should follow. But this particular method takes the things other way around. Once you have good sales, you'll make good promotion, right? So this is a wrong way of sort of thinking about promotions, right? This is the way, the pattern in which you're designing the promotions is wrong. right? So the starting step needs to be promotions followed by sales, and not the sales followed by promotions. Then comes the competitive parity method that we did. It sets the budget to match the competitor outlays. So let's say if your competitor spends 5 lakhs monthly on the promotions of their product, and if you're spending, let's say, 50,000, that means you would be you are far behind your competitor, and eventually your competitor would be able to convince the customers that their product is better, and you would lose your market share to your competitor, and that's not what you want. So in competitive parity method, you try to match your budget with your competitor, right? So if Unilever spends 2 billion on promotions, Procter & Gamble would like to match their budget with Unilever's budget. What it does is it avoids promotional wars, right? So if you know the Unilever ads comes 20 times a day, the competitor would also try to place their ad at least 20 times a day, so as to avoid promotional war, whereby one company is promoting a lot and the other company is not doing enough of promotions. It also helps you stay relevant in terms of industry standards, right? So if there's an industry which advertises very heavily, and you're not advertising heavily, then that means you're not staying relevant to that industry in terms of the budget allocation for promotions, right? So you need to stay relevant by matching the industry standards. Then the last way in which you could allocate the total promotional budget is objective and task method. Now what we started in objective and task method was, the objective task method sets the budget based on what the company wants to accomplish with the promotions. So there's an objective, and as a result of which they allocate budget on how ambitious the objective is. So if the objective is extremely ambitious, that means they would allocate a bigger chunk of their budget to that particular promotional campaign, because the objective is ambitious. It's a stretch target, right? So a stretch target is a target that you cannot attain under normal circumstances. You need to make an extra effort. You need to put in more energy into achieving that target. That's a stretch target. So if you're achieving for a stretch target, you need to allocate the budget accordingly, right? So it is the objective that would decide how much promotion you would want to make. So defining promotional objective, first step, followed by determining tasks that you would have to perform to achieve those objectives, and resultantly how much each task would cost you would decide what would be your total promotional budget. So this was about the last lecture. Let's talk about today's lecture, that is advertising and public relations. Right. So what would we be covering in this particular chapter? We would be studying about advertising. We would be talking about setting advertising objectives. We would be talking about setting the advertising budget, then developing advertising strategy, evaluating advertising effectiveness and return on advertising investment, public relations, the role and impact of public relations, and major PR tools, right? So two elements of promotional mix, that is advertising and public relations, we would be covering in this particular chapter. Right, so what is advertising? We have done the definition before, so let's quickly dissect the definition, if I should put it that way. Advertising is any paid form of non-personal presentation and promotion of ideas, goods or services by an identified sponsor. So the elements to look for are, it is a paid non-personal presentation whereby the company representative is not there to present the product themselves, right? So a person would not go directly from the company to present the product. There would be a non-personal presentation of ideas by an identified sponsor. So every time you look at the advertisement, you exactly know who the advertisement is coming from, right? So when the ad runs on television, you know it's Surf Excel, you know it's Lux, you know it's Tide or any other product. So this is all advertising. Now advertising has been there since human beings have been there, right? Initially, the humans who lived in caves used to draw drawings or send out messages by drawing things from rocks on in the caves, right? So this was the initial form of advertising. Later, in the Roman era, gladiator fights used to be advertised through posters, through drawings on the walls. There were town criers who used to send out messages, make announcements about various events, various products that were available in the market. So advertising has been there since ages, but the sort of advertising that we have these days has come a long way, right? So today it's a billions and billions of dollars industry when we talk about advertising. Huge budgets are allocated for advertising. Unilever and Procter & Gamble alone, 6-7 billion is their normal budget in US that they spend on advertising alone. So huge budgets are allocated on advertising, and it's just not for-profit organizations that spend this huge amount on advertising. In fact, not-for-profit organizations also spend tremendous amount on advertising. For instance, the American government is the 34th largest advertiser in the world, and they spend billions and billions of dollars in advertising, right? Same goes for Pakistani government. I took out the figures today, and if I could share the figures. The government spending on advertising for the year 2013 to 2017 was around rupees 15.74 billion for Pakistani government. So Pakistani government in 2013 to 2017, we're talking about the last government here, they spent 15.74 billion rupees on advertising, and they have come under heavy criticism for spending that much money on advertising from the present government. The present government, given that their austerity measures, have reduced their advertising budget by 70%. So quite a sizable amount has been reduced from the promotional budget, for which the media houses, the advertising agencies have criticized the present government for doing so. But these are two very opposite views. But as an educated person, we need to see both opinions and decide for ourselves what is better. So one government spent heavily on advertising, and as a result of which they gave business to media houses, they gave business to advertising agencies. On the other hand, the other government decided to take austerity measures. They did not spend a lot of money, and as a result of it, media houses and the advertising industry did not make a lot of money. So these are two opposite views, and you can decide for yourself what is better or what is not. Right, so we were talking about for-profit and not-for-profit organization, and how both are using advertising as a medium of promoting themselves. Now, talking about major advertising decisions, there are 4 major advertising decisions that a company needs to take, or an organization needs to take. The first one is setting the advertising objectives, followed by setting the advertising budget, followed by developing advertising strategy, and then lastly evaluating advertising effectiveness and return on advertising investment. Now coming down to the first one, setting advertising objective. Now an advertising objective is a specific communication task to be accomplished within a specific target audience during a specified period of time. So you have a specific target audience and you want to accomplish a specific task or specific objective with those particular target audience under a specified period of time. That is the advertising objective. Now, advertising objective could be classified into 3 categories, right? The first category is whereby you would want to inform people. The second one is whereby you would want to persuade people. And the third one could be you would want to remind the people. We would be looking at these 3 objectives in details. Now, talking about informative advertising, you want to inform people. That could be a very basic objective of your communication. Now, idea in informative advertising is that you want to create primary demand for the product. Now, what do I mean by primary demand? Primary demand is a demand in which you try to create demand for a certain category of product rather than for a particular brand, right? So, I would want to encourage people to consume, let's say, more fruits. It is healthy. But I'm not trying to convince them to buy fruits from this particular brand. I might want to encourage people to buy more computers or more technology related items, but I would not tell the people to buy from this particular brand. That is informative advertising, whereby you're trying to create a primary demand for the product. A good example in Pakistan is of that of Tetra Pak. Now, Tetra Pak wanted to encourage consumption of packaged milk. They never advertise for a particular brand of milk when it comes to telling people that this brand is better or which one is better, right? So they wanted to encourage the consumption of just the Tetra Pak packed milk. That was informative advertising. Again, another advertisement or another campaign that was running was that of poultry, right? So this was the tagline for their campaign. And that particular campaign, they never advertised to buy a certain brand, right? So all they said was that you need to consume poultry more and that it's healthy, right? So in this particular campaign as well, they were trying to create primary demand for the product. So this was informative advertising. The advertisement that I'm going to show you right now is that of Got Milk. Now, Got Milk is one of the most successful campaigns ever run on television, or an award-winning campaign. What happened was that the milk consumption in US was going tremendously low, and as a result of which the industry was, many companies were going out of business. So they decided to run a campaign to encourage milk consumption. And the campaign that they came out was Got Milk, and there were a series of advertisements that were designed under that campaign. I'm going to run one of the advertisements to show you what an informative ad would look like. Right, so if in this advertisement you can see that the kids were not consuming milk, as a result of which their mother was trying to convince them to have milk, and what they saw, and then they started having milk, and they were convinced that milk makes you stronger. So in this particular ad, if you see, there was no particular brand that was being endorsed. All that was being endorsed was that you need to consume milk for a healthy lifestyle. So this is informative advertising. The second form, or the second objective that you might aim when it comes to your setting objective is persuasive advertising. Now, what happens in persuasive advertising? Persuasive advertising is important with increased competition to build selective demand. Now, in the first type of objective, you were creating the primary demand, but in the second phase, you're trying to create secondary demand. Now, what happens in secondary demand? In secondary demand, you tell about the different brand options that are available to you. Now, in this particular form of advertising, you're trying to convince them that probably Noorpur is better than Halib, or Halib is better than Allpurs, right? So in that particular way, you're trying to endorse a certain brand. You're trying to tell people that this brand is better than the other. So the primary demand is not, the primary demand has already been created. Now you're trying to convince them into buying your product. That is secondary demand. And when there's a lot of competition, you try to persuade people into buying your product. Now, one of the type of persuasive advertising is called competitive advertising. A competitive advertising is an advertising that directly or indirectly compares the brand with one or more other brands that are available in the market. There are obviously rules when it comes to competitive advertising. You cannot explicitly say in today's age as to this brand is poor and that you need to buy this one. But in previous time we did see advertisement who were clearly hitting at the other competitor, telling that, you know, our brand is better than the other. A classic example is that of Coke and Pepsi. They've been rivals forever, and in this particular advertisement you would see two people from different companies. One is Pepsi, one is a salesperson of Pepsi, the other one is a salesperson of Coke, and how they react towards the product. So the advertisement says nothing else is Pepsi, which means that they're trying to compare the brand with the other brands that are available, specifically in this particular advertisement from Coke. They're trying to make a comparison with Coke and telling the people that our product is much better than Coke. That is competitive advertising, whereby you're trying to persuade people into buying your product by telling people that your product is better than that of competitor's product. The third type of advertising is called reminder advertisement. Now, what happens in reminder advertisement? It is usually sent out for mature products, the product that have reached the maturity level on the product life cycle. Now, reminder ads are designed just to tell people or remind the people that this product is in the market and it's available on the shelf and they can buy it whenever they feel like. Right? So reminder ads are put on television so as to let people know that the product is there in the market. Now the normal ads, Coke advertisement, Pepsi advertisements that you see on television, they are all reminder advertisement. They are not comparing themselves with any other brand. You know, they're just telling you that the company exists in the market and that you can have it whenever you feel like. So that's a reminder advertisement. So these are the three objectives that you might look at when you're designing your or when you're setting up your objective for advertising. The next step is setting the advertising budget. We just revised the 4 different types of advertising budgets. The first one being affordable method, the second one being you compare it with your competitors, the competitive parity method, then objective and task method, and then we talked about sales percentage method. So these are 4 different methods through which you could set your advertising budget. But what factors affect the advertising budget? Mainly two factors affect the advertising budget. The first factor that would affect is PLC, product life cycle stage. So where does your product lie on the life cycle stage? That affects. And how much is your market share? That also affects the your share. That also affects your advertising, right? So talking about the PLC, product life cycle stage, your product, a PLC has distinctly 4 stages. There's an introduction stage, there's a growth stage, then there's a maturity stage, and then there's a decline stage. Now on all these different stages, you require different amount of money that needs to be injected, right? So for instance, if your product is on the introduction stage and in the growth stage, people are trying out your products, right? People are getting aware that your product is there in the market. So for creating awareness, for initiating trial amongst the audience, you need to invest money, you need to inject money in your business through promotions, right? You need to make adequate promotions, enough promotions for people to know that the product is available, and then that they need to go buy the product. Once they've tried the product, only then they know if they like the product or not. If they like the product, they will keep on buying the product, and as a result of which, after some time, you would reach what we call the maturity stage. So in the introduction phase and in the growth phase, you would require maximum amount of money and promotional budget. So new products, that's why you call new products require larger budgets, and mature products require lower budget. Since you have attained the level of sales that you could possibly attain, that is the maturity state where your sales level off, right? Your sales would not grow any further. That is the maturity stage. So in maturity stage, you're not creating awareness, you're not creating, you're not initiating trials for the consumers. Consumers have already tried your product, and those who've liked the product have started buying your product. So at this particular stage, all you want to do is you want to remind the people that your product exists. So in this particular stage, all you're sending out are the reminder advertisements, right? So you're sending out the reminder advertisements, sometimes persuasive advertisements, to educate people, to let the people know that you are in the market, right? So that requires far less budget as compared to the situation where you need to make the people aware. So if you see a company that is coming for the very first time, they generally tend to, I'm talking about multinationals here, whenever they come in a new setup, they tend to run very lengthy ads. So when Zong came in, when Telenor came in, they used to spend heavily on advertising. There were ads coming up every let's say 2-3 minutes. There was an advertisement coming up for Telenor, and it was a lengthy advertisement. I believe it was more than a minute, if I'm not wrong. So they used to run lengthy advertisements, and with at very frequent intervals. So this was new product that was that was entering into the market, and as a result of which they needed larger budgets. Now coming down to market share. Market share is again extremely important when it comes to setting up your budget. How is market share important? Building or taking market share requires larger budget. So imagine a situation where a company has been there for a while, people have been loyal to them, they've been buying their products for let's say 20-30 years, and your company is new into the market and they've come for the very first time in the market. It wouldn't be easy to convince the other company's loyal customer to try your product and start buying your product, because they are in the habit of buying, they're used to buying the other company's product, right? So to convince loyal customers, or if not loyal, then regular customers, about convincing them to let go of the product of the competitor and buy your product, it requires a huge amount of effort on part of the company. So building or taking market share requires a larger budget. Markets with heavy competition or high advertising clutter require larger budgets. So if there's a heavy competition in the market, you obviously require more promotions to stay in the minds of customers. So to stay in the consideration set of the customer, you need to keep on telling the customer that you exist. And how would you tell the customer how you would keep on maintaining your position in the consideration set? By promotions. So promotions let you be in the consideration set of the customer, so that whenever they think about buying that category of product, they think about you. Right, so and undifferentiated brands require larger budgets. Now coming down to advertising strategy, how do you develop the advertising strategy? Right, so the next step is developing advertising strategy. Now advertising strategy is a strategy by which the company accomplishes its advertising objectives, and consists of creating advertising messages and selecting advertising mediums. Now advertising strategy, how would you accomplish the objectives that you've set for yourself? Through your advertising strategy, in which you would create the message firstly, and then you would select the media that would communicate that message to the end customer. Now advertising strategy needs to focus on the fact that you're living in a world where there is an overload of information that is being sent out to customers, right? So an average customer is bombarded with 3,000, 4,000 ads per day, and it is very hard for the customer to process all this information. So what customer does is that he practices psychic economy. Different ways of practicing psychic economy, but we would not go into that detail. You can study it later in consumer behavior courses. But the customer practices psychic economy so as to process information, because there's a lot of information and he cannot possibly as a human process all this information. So he would pick and choose what information he wants to process further. So how do you make an advertisement so compelling that he chooses your advertisement that he would want to process rather than your competitors or somebody else's message? That's the challenge of the marketers. People have reduced attention span. Another challenging task for marketers. They don't want to listen to your old stories, 1 or 2 minute ads. They just don't want to see that. They want to see a clear message coming out from the company which is interesting, which is entertaining, and at the very same time engaging as well, right? So it attracts them, it entertains them, it provides them with information, and it does all that very quickly. So that's what customers want, right? In the previous times you had television and you had only one channel, that is PTV. So you had no other option. If there was an advertisement running on the television, you had no other option then to watch that advertisement, right? So there was no other channel to click onto or go to if there was advertisement running during a program that you're watching. But nowadays you have hundreds and hundreds of options that you could switch on to while there's an advertisement running on the within the program that you're watching. So you could switch to other channel. Another reason is you have recordings available, right? So you could go to the YouTube to watch a drama that you like without advertisements conveniently, right? So you could skip all those advertisements and watch the drama without advertisements. That is another challenge for marketers. People have a lot of option these days. People record the program and then forward the advertisements and then watch the programs, right? So in that way they save their time and they don't want to watch they don't have to watch the advertisement. Now all this is making things difficult for the marketers, because with this particular scenario they need to create advertisements that are so engaging and so entertaining that people would want to watch their ads, right? So gaining attention and communicating well is the key to creating the advertising message. Now, advertisements need to be better planned, more imaginative, more entertaining, and more rewarding to the consumer. So if I see the advertisement, it shouldn't be just telling me the different flavors that are available in your ice cream brands, right? It should be able to tell me, it should be able to entertain me. So maybe the jingle is very, appealing to your ears, right? It's true music to your ears. The models that are, used in that advertisement that are company who are endorsing the products are something that the customer likes, right? The colors may be very vivid in the advertisement, and that's what the customer might enjoy. So you need to create an advertisement that is truly entertaining for the people, and that they would not want to reverse the advertisement. They would want to see the advertisement, right? So you need to create advertisements which provide information about the company and yet are entertaining, and that's what we call the medicine and wine view. Now, Madison is a street in New York where all the major advertising agencies work, and wine is a street in Hollywood. So it's a merger of both the advertising and the entertainment. Hollywood for entertainment, advertising agencies for advertisements, right? So you need to combine the Madison and wine so as to create a superior message for the people. Now, creating the advertising message. Now, how would you create an advertising message? First, you need to create a message strategy. And message strategy, based on that message strategy, you would have your creative concept and message execution. Now, what is message strategy? Message strategy is a general message that will be communicated to the customer, right? So what benefit does the product provide you? That is something that you're looking at in the message strategy. Now, message strategy statements are plain, straightforward outlines of benefits and positioning points that are required to be stressed in an advertisement. So how do you position your product in the minds of the customer? More for less, less for more, different options that you have. And what benefits would you want to stress in that particular advertisement, right? So maybe you've opened up a new hotel, it's charging less, it's providing services of a 5-star hotel, it's very comfortable, the food is very nice, the ambience is very nice. So all these points that you would want to stress, and all these points need to be exactly mentioned in your message strategy statement, and sort of sets the scope for the your message execution and creative concept. Now, once you've set the message strategy, then you move on to creative concept. Now, creative concept is the idea that will bring the message strategy to life and guide specific appeals to be used in an advertising campaign. So creative concept is actually where art director and copywriter would work together. The copywriter is the one that writes the text that would go in the message, or that would be spoken during the advertisement, right? So if there's a print advertisement and there's a tagline on it, that would be written by the copywriter. On the other hand, the art director would decide what illustrations would go into the message. How would the illustrations be placed? What colors would be used? What font would be used? How would it be used? So all this is the work of art director. So visualization comes from the art director and phrases come from the copywriter. And both of these work together in designing or creating a concept that is based on the message strategy statement that you've made earlier. Now, characteristics of appeals. What sort of appeals can you make? The appeals need to be meaningful to the customer. That means the consumer should think that the appeal is makes sense to them, right? The appeal is relevant to them. They would want to find out more about the advertisement. Then it needs to be believable, that whatever the company is saying, that is true, we believe it. And the third one is distinctive. It needs to stand out from the competing brands. So it needs to tell the customer how your brand is better than whatever is available into the market. Now the appeals regarding believable, now you need to create an advertisement that looks believable apparently, right? So if you see the different do the due and those advertisements, you might not think they are believable when you think rationally, but apparently how they look on screen, they look very believable, right? So that's the idea. Then comes message execution. Message execution is when the advertiser turns the big idea into an actual ad execution that will capture the target market's attention and interest. How would you execute the advertisement? How would you execute the creative concept that you've made earlier? What sort of style would you use? What sort of tone would you use? What would be the format? What words would you use? That all falls under message execution, where you actually put the creative concept into an actual advertisement. That is message execution. Now there are different ways of executing a message. These are different ways in which you could execute slice of life, lifestyle, fantasy, mood or image. So these are different types of execution styles. We're going to see these one by one. Now slice of life is an execution style whereby you see the people in their setting, in their own setting, and they're leading their lives and they're using the product, right? So there's no, it's an average setting in which the product would be consumed, and that's what the advertiser is trying to exhibit. Let's see the advertisement here.
जो सूरज मशरिक के उफ़क़ से तुलू हुआ, उन खुशियों और रौनकों की महक हमारी तहजीब की मिठास से सरशार, हर सू हर सिमत रंगीनियां खोल रहा है। दोस्ती के मुसाफिर और मोहब्बतों के बुलावे लिए आज रूह अफ़ज़ा दुनिया भर में हमारी रिवायतों का सफ़ीर है। हमारी पहचान मशरूब मशरिक रूह अफ़ज़ा रमज़ान मुबारक।
Advertisement, an average person is using रूह अफ़ज़ा in different settings, and that's what is projected in this particular advertisement. So that is slice of life. Now let's see lifestyle, how a particular product fits into your lifestyle. That is something that we see in this particular advertisement.
बॉडी में पोल्यूशन गया, बॉडी में पोल्यूशन
हर दिन हर पल जब चाहे हम तो हमेशा दबा के खाए।
बुरी हैबिट्स का है ये जंक्शन।
अनहेल्दी फूड यानी बॉडी में पोल्यूशन, तो इसे अंदर से क्लीन करो। रोज थोड़ी एक्सरसाइज, हेल्दी डाइट और न्यू लिप्टन ग्रीन टी के साथ ये बॉडी को हाइड्रेट करके उसे अंदर से क्लीन करने में हेल्प करे। न्यू लिप्टन ग्रीन टी आदत डाल लो।
So if you want to lead a healthier lifestyle, you need to consume this particular product. So they're trying to endorse a certain lifestyle in this particular advertisement, another form of message execution. Then fantasy, which is not really true, but you sort of put it in your ad, that is fantasy.
You're very bold.
My perfume is bold. Bold perfume body spray. Kar de bold.
Be bold. Change the game.
Now in this particular advertisement, you can see that the person is using a certain brand of deodorant, and as a result of which people are going gaga over him, which is not really true, right? It would not happen in real life, yet they have executed the message in such a way that it creates fantasy. The next one is mood or image. In this particular type of execution style, what you do is you try to create an image of the product or the company. You do not try to endorse a certain product, but you try to create an image of the product. Here's a lovely ad from Emirates, which is one of the best airlines.
Oh. Well, hello. Can I help you, sir?
I'm just about to begin my journey back.
Really? And where's that to?
Back to my mom and dad.
What do you say I'd be your co-pilot?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, hold on. Sorry, my name's Jennifer, but my friends call me Jen.
My name's Cooper, but you can call me Coop. Is it possible for me to refuel some carrot juice?
Carrot juice, huh?
I want to be a pilot when I grow up, and good eyesight is very important.
Smart. Could we have 2 carrot juices, please?
Certainly, ma'am.
Thank you. Cooper, so you want to fly planes when you grow up, huh?
Yeah. But this is the best plane, Jen, so I only want to fly this plane. Oh, Dad! Do you want me my co-pilot?
Hi there.
Oh, hello.
This thing has so many games and so many movies. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Hi, madam. Would you like to go back to your seat now?
Oh, no, I'm good. Oh, wait, do you think their mom's okay?
Oh, she's doing just fine.
When I'm a pilot, you'll be able to fly around the world even faster.
Well, that's a shame. It's so nice up here.
Right, so they're setting up the image of the company, and in this particular advertisement, they do not, explicitly tell the amenities that are available on board, but you can very well see these on during the advertisement. You could see there's a shower on board. Then you could order any drinks that you want, and you would get those. Then you see the lady who is giving out drinks in the economy class. Again, tells you about the service. Then the person coming from the business class to the economy class, sitting and enjoying themselves, equally tells you about the sort of service that they provide in the economy class. Then they also tell you about the number of channels that they have on board and the sort of service that they give out. So they've employed one of the finest faces that we have in Hollywood, that is Jennifer Aniston, and they have executed the ad using her and telling the people that how well or how nice the service is for Emirates. So they're trying to create an image through this particular ad. If you see the next ad, this ad is from Noorpur. It is one of the award-winning ads of Noorpur, in which the visuals are extremely strong, and so is the music. So if you're trying to execute the advertisement in musical style, that means the music needs to be really strong. Another advertisement that had a very strong jingle when it comes to Pakistani advertising scene is that of Ding Dong Bubble. So everybody remembers the jingle. That is because it was very sound musically. So the message execution style was musical. Let's see this particular advertisement. this was the advertisement that was sent out when Nupu was sort of revamping their brand, and they shifted from their previous colors to this particular black and white sort of and yellow color range. This advertisement was introduced then, and if you see this particular advertisement, two things stand out. The first thing are the very strong visual, the very strong camera work, and the second thing that stands out is its music. You want to hear the advertisement, you want to see the advertisement again and again, because the music is extremely engaging. And that's what is Madison and Wine View that we talked about earlier. You need to create an advertisement that is just not advertisement, but entertainment at the very same time as well, right? So this was a perfect example for that. Then you could also include personality and symbols when executing your...
Mr. Muscle versus blocked drains.
Blocked drains are such hard work.
I've got just the solution.
Mr. Muscle.
That's right, Mr. Muscle Drano Ultra Gel. Watch this. There's nothing thicker. It powers through the water, clings to the clog, and blasts the blockage away.
Wow. Thanks, Mr. Muscle.
No, thank you.
Mr. Muscle, help.
Gotta go. Mr. Muscle Drano Ultra Gel, the science of tough cleaning.
So that's that they've incorporated complete symbol or a complete personality in a particular advertisement, and they've tried to execute the advertisement that way. Another way could be technical expertise. You could tell the people that the company is extremely expert at what they produce, and that you should buy their product for the simple reason that they are good at what they do. This is a very recent advertisement.
विराट, तुम्हारा पहला मैच.
अरे यार, no experience, बहुत टेंशन थी. और ये तुम्हारी पहली फिल्म?
पहला शॉट, रीटेक पे रीटेक बैंड बज गई थी यार. एक्सपीरियंस कितना जरूरी होता है ना?
इसीलिए हमने अपना घर बनाया श्याम स्टील फ्लेक्सी स्ट्रॉन्ग टीएमटी बार से,
जिनके पास है 60 साल से भी ज्यादा का एक्सपीरियंस.
अरे तुम भी स्कूल में पेड़ बनी थी.
So in this particular advertisement, the company is Shyam Steel, and they're trying to tell that they have over 60 years of experience, as a result of which they know what they make, and as a result of which you should choose their product. So they're trying to emphasize the technical expertise that the company has. The next one is scientific evidence.
सिर्फ एक कॉफी में 7 स्टेप से पानी को बिल्कुल प्योर बनाता है. पहले पानी फिल्टर होता है, फिर से पॉलिश करके चमकाते हैं, फिर रोशनी से साफ करते हैं. बेवास आसमां से और भी साफ बनाते हैं. दोबारा फिल्टर करते हैं, मिनरल जेट करते हैं, और फिर ऑक्सीजन से जान डालते हैं. पेप्सी देता है एक्वाफीना की प्यार होने की गारंटी. अब सिर्फ एक कॉफी नहीं पीना, बोलना कभी ना.
So in this particular advertisement, they provide you with the scientific evidence of how they clean the water and what different steps they include in providing you with the quality of water that they commit, right? So they're telling the whole process of cleaning, the reverse osmosis, and how they use it. So this is scientific evidence that they're providing as to why their product is superior than whatever is available in the market. The last one is testimonial or endorsement, where average person comes on the advertisement and tells their story, and sort of testifies the product in terms of its quality and its working. So this is an advertisement for Ariel.
पाकिस्तान भर की ख्वातीन की नंबर 1 चॉइस.
आई एम सहर दुरानी. फैशन इंडस्ट्री से ताल्लुक रखने की वजह से सारा दिन क्लाइंट से डील करती हूँ, इसीलिए मेरा अपना अच्छा नजर आना जरूरी है. एक दफा मेरे पास एक क्लाइंट आई अपना स्पेशल ओकेजन का ड्रेस ट्रायल करने के लिए, और एक्सीडेंटली उस पे कॉफी गिर गई. क्लाइंट तो एकदम से परेशान ही हो गई, क्योंकि वो मानती थी कि ये दाग किसी डिटर्जेंट से नहीं निकलेगा. मुझे अपने फ्रेंड एरियल पे पूरा भरोसा था. मैंने उनका ड्रेस एरियल से वॉश किया, वो तो हैरान ही रह गई, जैसे दाग तो कभी था ही नहीं. एरियल की वजह से उनका कॉन्फिडेंस मुझ पे और भी बढ़ गया, और मुझे अपने बेस्ट फ्रेंड एरियल पे बहुत फख्र है.
So you have an average person coming on television, which you might think is a believable source of communication, and telling their use. The person may be ordinary, the person may be a celebrity, but all that needs to be ensured that the person needs to be believable when they're testifying your product, sort of endorsing your product. So these are the few different ways in which you could endorse your. So we'll keep the lecture here, and we'll continue in the next class with consumer generated messages. Thank you very much.